In this lesson, we're going to be finding the equation for a line. So if you remember in past lessons, we have two methods for graphing a line, the plugging in points, and then using the slope-intercept form. So what we're going to do is reverse that. Instead of giving you a line and asking you to graph it, we're going to give you some ideas about the lines or some properties of the lines, and we're going to ask you to come up with a line. All right. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to do this. I'm going to start out a little bit different than the book does. The book starts with finding the equation of a line through 2 points. But this first video is going to be finding the equation of a line with a given slope. All right. So what we're going to do is look at the y equals mx plus b slope-intercept form of a line. Now I've zoomed in. So y equals mx plus b. So let's say that I know that the slope of the line is going to be 2/3. And let's say that I know the y-intercept is the point, well, let's make 0, 7. Well, if I know those two things, and what we have is this form that we want to put it in, so we want to put our lines in these slope-intercept forms, then it's pretty easy to say, well, my line, at least the equation of the line, is going to be y equals 2/3 x plus 7. All right. So that's the idea. Basically, it's saying if I know the slope and I know the y-intercept, and in particular, if I know this b value, which is the y value of the y-intercept, if you know those two numbers, then you know the equation of the line. So how do we come up with those two numbers? Well, we're going to look at different ways in different videos of coming up with the slope, but coming up with the y-intercept, or at least coming up with the b value here, can be achieved in a lot of different ways. So let's try a couple of problems. I'll do about 3 problems where I just give you a slope and then I give you a point on the line, and you'll see how this works. All right, so this first problem says, that again, I've made this up. This is not in the guided notes. This first problem that I've made up says, find the equation of a line with slope of 3/4 and through the point 8, 6. Now, again, like I've mentioned here, what we want is we want y equals mx plus b. We want that form. So if I know my slope is 3/4, well, I can replace that m with the number 3/4. So I at least know what the m is. Now here's the trick of we know it goes through the point 8, 6. If I know that my line goes through the point 8, 6, then I know that when I plug in 8 in for x and 6 in for y, it has to give me a true statement. So basically, knowing that this line goes through the point 8, 6, I can plug in 6 in for y and 8 in for x, and I know that this equation here, 6 equals 3/4 times 8 plus b, has to be true. This is an equation I can solve for b. Multiply 3/4 times 8. You end up with 6 equals, well, 3/4 times 8 is in fact 6. So we get 6 equals 6 plus b, subtract 6 from both sides, and what we get is that b is equal to 0, or 0 is equal to b. Now, I'm not quite done yet with this problem because remember, it asks me to find the equation of the line. What I've done is I've found the slope, 3/4. I've found the b, but the equation is this thing, y equals mx plus b. So my final answer has to look like y equals 3/4 times x plus 0. Okay? If you don't want to attach the plus 0, you don't have to because plus 0 doesn't do anything. You could leave it as y equals 3/4 x. So there you go. That's how to find the equation of a line with a given slope and through a given point. Okay? You plug in the slope into the y equals mx plus b formula, and then you plug in the point in order to find your b. Once you've found your b, you rewrite your equation, and your final answer is right here. Again, if you want to keep the plus 0, that's perfectly fine. If you don't, that's no big deal either. So let's try another one. So this next one says, again, I've made this up, says find the equation of a line with slope of 2 and through the point 5, 3. So slope of 2. We start out, I always like rewriting y equals mx plus b just because it tells me what I need. And then my next line is saying, well, m has to be 2. So y equals 2 times x plus b. Now I know what the m is. I can move on and I can say, well, if I plug in this point, 5 comma 3, be very careful when you plug this in. The y value is the 3 and the x value is the 5. Whoops. So 3 equals 2 times 5 plus b. Now I can solve that. 3 equals 10 plus b. Subtract 10 from both sides, you get -7 as your b. Again, we're not quite done yet. What we need is the equation. Now that I know my slope is 2 and my b is -7, we write y equals 2x minus 7. Or you could write y equals 2x plus -7. Either way, this is your final answer. Okay? So that's the idea. So when I have a slope and when I have a point, I just plug in the slope in for m, plug in the point in order to find b. My line becomes y equals that slope times x plus b. Let's do another one. Okay, find the equation of a line with slope of -4/5 and through the point 10 comma 5. So our slope is -4/5. Sometimes I'll write m equals there. That'll come up, that's kind of nice in the next sections where I have to figure out my slope. Here I'm kind of given the slope. But once we get into 2,3a, 2,3b, and 2,3c, we have to figure that out. So m equals -4/5. I say, well, I know my equation is going to be y equals -4/5 times x plus some sort of a b. I find my b by plugging in the point 10, 5. Again, that's a 5 in for the y and a 10 in for the x value. Now I can solve for b. What we end up with, 5 equals negative 8. When you take negative 4/5 times 10, you get negative 8 plus b. Add 8 to both sides, you end up with 13 equaling b. Okay, now that we've done all that, I know my slope, m is equal to negative 4/5. My b is a positive 13. So I can just plug it in here into my equation and get a final answer. Let me do it this way. Y equals negative 4/5 times x plus 13. That's, again, my final answer. By the way, when you're typing this out in Moodle, make sure you put things as improper fractions. So if you wrote negative 0.8, Moodle doesn't recognize that often. So be very careful, read directions on Moodle about how it wants these numbers. Okay, there we go. Now in the next couple of sections, we're going to go into the book and we're going to look at how to find equations of lines given other sets of properties. All right.